That is a great question because I'm still trying to figure that out. But I would have to say that I am just a person who's extremely blessed to be able to be creative every day. I'm that kid who never wanted to leave arts and crafts when I was growing up, and I never had to. That's pretty easy, actually. My first memory of being creative was hanging out with my grandmother and sewing. And she would put some fabric on an embroidery hoop for me, and she would show me how to sew buttons on it and do little embroidery stitches and things like that. And she just kept me very busy learning how to do those things. And it sparked something inside of me, that creative energy, and it never went away. I was initially attracted to fashion because I grew up in a really small town with not a lot of clothing options. I mean, there were like Dickies jeans and plaid shirts, and I was not that kid, obviously. There was one convenience store in my hometown, and they only had one copy of Vogue magazine and GQ, and I made my dad drive me there like the first of the month to make sure I got those issues. I've always loved fashion, and I've always loved making my own clothes too. And it was the only way that I could have fashion in my life growing up in this farming community. So that's what attracted me to it. Necessity and this crazy need to dress like a clown. A girlfriend of mine who worked for Cosmopolitan magazine said, "I'm starting this new magazine called Cosmo Girl, and I want you to write an article for the magazine about how girls can redecorate their room." And I was like, oh, I'm kind of busy, but like, I'll do it. And I ended up writing for that magazine for 10 years, an article called Cool Room, which eventually became my first book, which is called Super Sweet, The Ultimate Bedroom Makeover Guide for Teen Girls. And the reason she offered me this job is because of my apartment. She knew that I had made everything, every pillow, all my bedding, painted all the furniture. That's why she offered me this job. That's why my career sort of took this left turn. Fashion for me was limiting ultimately after many years. I worked in New York and I had my own store for 17 years. I showed my collections during the big New York shows. I sold my collections all over the world. But for me, I wanted to make lampshades and, you know, build furniture and do all of these other creative things. And fashion, as much as I loved it, was very limiting. It was only allowing me to really work with fabric, and I wanted to work with wood and glue things together and beads and, you know, all of these things that I just wasn't able to do being a fashion designer. It feels amazing when I finish a project. Because then the world of possibilities of your next project is immediately opened up. There's always a sadness too when you finish something that you really enjoyed creating, because it's kind of like saying goodbye to this friend that you've spent a lot of time with and you've poured part of your soul into. But that's the great thing about finishing a project, is you've grown as a creative person, you've learned something new, and you can apply it to your next project. It's very similar to what life is about. Creativity playing a big financial role in your life. It actually can, and I heard something recently about the GDP is finally going to figure out what the film industry contributes to the national economy, and it's something like $500 billion, which I thought was amazing. But then I thought about what really makes film, what really goes into that. And then I thought, wow, costume designers, set designers, all furniture builders, all of these people who are in this creative industry, who are creative, make a living out of being creative and making movies. And then I started thinking globally and on a much bigger scale, how do people make a living being creative? I don't think we realize how many people actually make a living being creative. Everything that you have, that you touch, was designed and created by someone. And that is making a living being creative. And what we do as crafters, DIYers, makers, will inspire somebody to do something else, something bigger, something more interesting, and it will create money. It will create it will make a living for someone. But we can also do that for ourselves. We can partner with companies that support what we do. We can make YouTube videos and show the world what we do. We can blog for companies, be designers for companies. You can make a living being creative if you want to. It takes persistence. It takes a lot of luck. It takes being good at what you do. And well, I guess that's it. It takes persistence, luck, and being good at what you do. It's extremely important to take opportunities that are given to you and to figure out a way to make them work for you. Not everything is going to work out. That's just a fact. It's law of averages. But certain things will work out. And even if 1 out of 10 things work out that you try, people are only going to remember you for that one successful thing that you did anyway. Forget all the other stuff that didn't work out. This dress was really exciting for me to make because it was the first time that I actually got to create something and write down on the project how I actually felt about it. And so many things were popping into my head as I was writing this diary. I started to write about what it was like being a young person, being creative, when all of my friends were interested in being outside, riding their bikes, playing baseball. I could not play baseball. I could barely ride a bike. But I love to sew and I love to make all of these things. It just kept me happy. And then I talk about, in the middle part of the dress, moving to New York City, having this, you know, this life there that was nothing but being creative. Finding furniture on the street and bringing it into my apartment, which I could barely afford. Going to college there, and being surrounded by tons of kids who were just like me from all these little towns all over the country, all over the world, who love to sew and love to make things, and how fun that was. And I talk a lot about opportunity on this and how all of these things happened in my life. And I thought I could have easily said no. I don't want to write for this magazine or a newspaper, or I don't want to make this dress for this lady who ended up being a buyer for Barney's. And if I'd have said no, if I had not taken those opportunities, my life wouldn't be the way it is today. So it was exciting to be able to talk about those things on this dress. This dress represents more than just a dress that's made with these fabulous products and, you know, Tulip dyes and, you know, wonderful Tulip Puffy paints. This dress is a culmination of who I am as a person. It's my life as a fashion designer and a creative person and all of that, and it's all encompassed into this one thing, and I love it. It feels amazing when I finish a project, because then the world of possibilities of your next project is immediately opened up. There's always a sadness too when you finish something that you really enjoyed creating, because it's kind of like saying goodbye to this friend that you've spent a lot of time with and you've poured part of your soul into. But that's the great thing about finishing a project, is you've grown as a creative person, you've learned something new, and you can apply it to your next project. It's very similar to what life is about. I think what people are not getting about DIY, crafting, making, whatever you want to call it, is that this is not just about what it is that you're making. This is about building self-esteem, a sense of accomplishment that you can get several times a day, problem solving for kids when they make a project and they figure out what they're doing and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. My mom's gonna love this. I can't believe I made this thing. That's what it's about. It's about the process. It's about the active meditation that you're taking part in. It's about feeling good about something and also taking part in creating your environment and your space. If you're making a pillow for your sofa, if you're, sewing your curtains, it is about all of those things, not just about, making something or ending up with something. It's everything that leads up to that. Creativity means everything to me. It is how I live my life. It is how I breathe. Everything that I do from morning until night has an aspect of creativity in it. And I think that it has to be that way for me because when I'm not being creative, when I'm away from that element of my life, I'm not the same person. I need it to exist on this planet. I need to be able to create beautiful things and interesting things and work with my hands. I think that, we're all given gifts and this is mine, and it's important for me to be able to share that with the world in some way, any way that I can. Making YouTube videos, writing books, filming TV shows, talking to people, teaching kids, whatever I can do. It's that important to me that I don't ever want to be away from having a creative element in my life. Yes, with my whole heart, I believe that creativity changes everything. It's the beauty that we're surrounded by every single day. It's the design that we see in our coffee cup, in the way our homes look, in the projects that we make, in how we look at the world. Creativity changes everything, and it has changed everything. Otherwise, we'd all be living in caves and we'd be happy just running around in a fur loincloth, instead of some sexy jeans and a really cute top. My single greatest creative accomplishment would probably have to be the Big Ass series of books that I wrote. I had been doing television at that point for about 7 or 8 years, and I had been collecting all of these projects that I was doing for these TV shows, these home makeover shows. And I thought, I've got to put these into a book, if not just for myself, just for everyone to have. So I went to my publisher and I said, hey, I have an idea for a book. I have all these projects. And I said, it's not very specific. It's a lot of different things. And she's like, well, describe it to me. And I said, well, it's really just like a big ass book of crafts. And she said, that's what we're gonna call it. And I thought, okay, this is the birth of something crazy. And then, 5 years later and 4 big ass books later, it turned into this kind of, or at least what people say to me, a really cool take on crafts. And I was glad that I was able to give DIY and crafting and making a cool edge, or at least let people know that it is really fun. It's cool to make stuff. It's great. And you don't have to feel like, you know, you have to hide your, you know, crafting from people. You're, oh, I like to knit, but you don't want to tell anyone because they're going to think you're, you know, nerdy or something. It's great. Tell everybody. Christmas tree ornaments. The first project I ever made with Puffy Paint was Christmas tree ornaments, because I had all of these really plain white bulbs and I thought, gosh, these are really, for lack of a better word, ugly. And I have to zhuzh them up a little bit. So I took black Puffy Paint and I did all this crazy scroll work on them, and they looked amazing. So, I mean, I've kind of been addicted to it ever since. Puffy paint, I mean, it's just fun. That's a paint that kids want to use. And since I've actually never grown up, Puffy paint is something that I've always loved. You know, it just looks happy. You know, it's this happy material. And now it comes in these incredible colors, and it's textural, and you can do all kinds of things with it. I mean, I like to do little designs with it and then let it dry and then do rubbings with it. I mean, I'll apply it to Christmas tree ornaments. I'll use it on clothing, which I love, you know, when I do costumes or, you know, writing my diary on this dress behind me. Like, it's just a great, awesome paint. It's a happy paint.